trying to basically any way that we can improve a facility. We search for that, and we explore with all different companies like Call Potential, like Automated, like a lot of other companies we use in the industry, where we've gotten to work really closely with them to develop new ways to be more efficient, new products. We also buy and sell facilities, and so, which we'll get into here, but we used to own facilities and build them a while back, and we kind of got out of it because we were so busy with the consulting side. And so when we finally developed a way we could run facilities unmanned and automated, we decided if we could develop a really good way to do that, we would get back into buying. And so just now in the last 2 years, we've bought 19 facilities and built 3. And so we're very obviously excited about that. And that morphed into where we were providing third-party management services for a while. Now we're doing it just solely for automated unattended facilities. And that's been the huge piece now that we're taking off. So that new company is Copper Storage Solutions, which is what I'm here today for. But we do a lot of things. If you can think of it, we either do it in self-storage or we'll send you in the direction, right, of somebody to do it. So we've done this for a long time.
Very well integrated and lots of knowledge. So tell me more. I don't want to gloss over this unmanned and automated. Tell me more about what that is, what you're looking for those.
Of course. So I've been working on this for a few years now, where we realized that in the industry, your biggest facilities, right, are these 60,000, 70,000 square foot, where it's a very, very specific model. You have to have enough revenue to justify really third-party management. And so over the last, I think it was 6 or 7 years, 75% of all the money in self-storage for new builds went into 5 cities, which is really hard to believe when you really think about it. But it's because everyone's chasing the model of having these 60, 70,000 rentable square feet facilities that are very, very successful. But they have to make enough money where you can viably run those facilities. And in an acquisitions market, the vast majority of facilities, 80, 85% of the facilities in the United States will never fit that model. And so in our eyes, we saw this big gap where now that there are services like Call Potential, like Automated, where we have these advanced ability to run these stores and locations really without anybody there, that started to interest us. And so one of the most important pieces of why we really cared about it is you have all these facilities over the United States that people really aren't targeting in tertiary markets, secondary markets. And to us, there was a big gain there if we could find a way to run those facilities without a manager, because your gains, while you can still buy a facility that is underperforming a cheaper facility in a tertiary market, up to this point, really, unless you're Red Dot or you're 10 Federal or StoreQuest does management for unattended automated facilities. Up until this point, you had to take over that facility and still have a manager. So your room for NOI is pretty slim. You can do tenant insurance, you can increase rates. And while you can be very successful in that, if we could also cut out the $40,000 a year minimum, that you're paying for payroll, could we find a viable way? Because that's a lot of money. That's over $500,000 in equity. If you can find a way to cut that out on an expense, there's a lot of facilities that run 60, 70,000 for NOI hit on operating expense, right, for payroll. So that's a really big deal. And so when we first started exploring this, we looked at Red Dot, who was phenomenal. They are taking over the industry in an unattended form. They've been doing this for a long time. 10 Federal, good friends with Brad Minsley and that group. They're phenomenal what they did. And so we knew that there are all these facilities that were already focusing on that. The industry could possibly go that way. And so that really interested us. And then for doing due diligence and all these feasibility studies, we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of facilities in the United States. And so there are already a much lower form of that where somebody will own 100 units. They just answer their cell phone, or you leave them a message and then they'll meet you down there to rent a unit at some point. So, you already have those facilities as well, where that's a very not great form of doing it. People can still make money because, that the area needs it. It's a small town. Maybe they can get away with it. So you already have that as well. But there had to be a way, like Red Dot, like 10 Federal, to really put this on a scale we could grow this big, and we could run facilities from anywhere. And so some of those differences were, we looked at the technology being used, kiosk and some of these expensive methods and vending locks, those kinds of things. And we said, I think we could probably do this a little bit cheaper, but more importantly, if we could get it right for our facilities and flesh this out, we could take it to a third party, avenue like a StoreQuest, who's phenomenal at doing that. And so this has been a few years in the making of testing all of these different ways to run facilities. And finally, we hit a point where we said, you know what, this is viable. And not only is it viable, it's making a lot of money being able to cut out these facilities, and we can buy properties that a lot of the REITs and stuff will never target. In fact, they're in a, we run automated facilities all over the United States next to REITs in primary markets, but the ones we ended up going after and that a lot of our clients also are now going after are these tertiary secondary markets. Because, in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, how do you really make enough money to where you can find a facility that you have to find a way to run it? And it makes no sense to build some infrastructure of having a manager that you're traveling from out of town or out of state to come and train them and to work on. And so we thought that was a prime space. And we'll get into some numbers, like some of the case study stuff of just how phenomenal the numbers have been. But it's kind of unbelievable when you look at it. So there was a need in the market, and we just wanted to build a way that we could meet that need and then show others, right, that it's a pretty gaping hole in the industry of places that you can buy and a lot more money to be made in an industry where the top money making areas are all full and saturated. So there's got to be some way to grow, to go into that. And so I can definitely go into how we operate and how we use you guys and that kind of stuff as well.
It's so fascinating. Is there a certain size property that's better to run manned versus unmanned?
Great question. And so we get this actually a lot. So we have tested this with 15,000 rentable square feet up to 70,000 rentable square feet, 80,000. 10 Federal had facilities over 100,000 square feet. Those are obviously big numbers back and forth. What we've realized is the only difficult facility to run automated isn't so much on a size scale. If you have a boat and RV only facility, uncovered facility, and you have 300 boat and RV spaces, that gets a little difficult to run automated because there's a lot of moving parts and kind of how that works. There's a lot of stuff to keep track of, a lot of liability where people are not the smartest people in the world, so they run into other people's stuff, hit gates, those kinds of things. That's really the only place that we have found. There's been a couple of other exceptions where there's a facility that in Louisiana that I've seen change hands a few times to different companies we work with. And basically, it's this old hotel from the 50s and apartments that were converted from that into storage. And it's the most convoluted maze of a facility that without a manager there to walk them through and show them that's been an issue. But anything else that is a straightforward facility, whether it's a 3-4 story climate, all climate, REIT, we've got clients that are buying those and turning automated. Or it is a 15,000 square foot gravel drive up facility without a gate. Any of those sizes end up working.
So just over this last year, you've had incredible explosive growth with your third party management and your new facilities. How could you talk a little to that, how you did it and where you guys are at now?
Of course. I'm going to nerd out on some of this stuff, so I apologize.
Please, this is why we're here.
You can't tell that I'm somewhat passionate about an industry that you wouldn't think is able to be passionate about. So part of the reason this growth is, again, developing a way that we could scale for other people, how to buy facilities and make money on them where you're not having this big OpEx and it creates a lot more room. So we wanted this appeal. We have all these private equity groups that are popping up in storage coming from other sectors in the United States. You see it all the time. Big investor groups coming in that were in multifamily, mobile home parks, retail, and those industries just aren't, they're not as booming as they once were, and self-storage is a little bit easier to run. So in doing so, you have all these people in the United States that have no business and don't care to run a facility. They want it to be very turnkey. And so how do you tell these investor groups you can go buy 50 facilities in the middle of nowhere? And so we realized we would be one of the only options. There are a few other third party that are doing unmanned, and there's more. I just talked to some other people, good friends of ours in the industry yesterday, that they're starting to look into it. Other management companies are starting to look into it. But what we realized, we could grow very, very fast if we could accomplish a few things. One of which, we had to be a low-cost solution, period. Because when you have these facilities that are 20, 30,000 square feet, how do you make the numbers work at that facility for most management. The truth is they just don't. We work with a lot of management companies that never dreamed of being able to buy those facilities because in their eyes, they have to have someone run it and there's no room here. So we realized if we could find a low cost solution, first and foremost, that would be the primary reason that we could grow. And so we'll go with that point first because it's very important to how this model works. So in our eyes, if we don't have a manager on site, how do we find a low cost solution to provide the best customer service, to make sure that all of their needs are met, make sure that we're not losing rentals, make sure we're having no issues there? How do we come up with this? And so in our eyes, we had to tackle how are we going to operate these facilities? How are our remote managers really going to work to run these? And so that's kind of what we looked at. We said, there are a lot of call centers out there. There are a lot of people utilizing that, but they just rent units. You have or they just take payments. A few of them now rent units kind of in specific niche ways, but none of them really do outbound calls, collections. They don't deal with customer service issues. They don't talk to the guy who goes by one day a week to clean units. That's not part of it. So we said, okay, well, we have to find an infrastructure where we can have remote managers, pay them well, and they can run multiple facilities in a remote form, which we searched everywhere, right? There are a lot of, you could use Salesforce, you could use a lot of these things, but those aren't viable because we have to have this fast, easy way to rent units, period. And so whenever we started looking through this, part of the way we could achieve this low cost solution was actually going to call potential. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here on this call. Like it really is.
Tell me about this call center.
It's when we built our call center, we realized there were a few options, but only one would get us to a point where, in our eyes, in order to keep it low cost going to the customer so that our management clients we don't have to charge much to be able to do this, we have to have really fast calls, right? So we have to be able to deal with things in a fast manner. Well, if the big majority of what we're doing is renting units, it's that and collections really are the two most important things that we do. Well, on your platform, we're able to rent units directly through the platform. And it doesn't matter, like in our case, we have all these management clients, some use SiteLink, some use Storage, and we have to have one platform instead of logging in to every single site that we bring on and have literally, which is what some places do, they have to have like 50 screens open of every facility for anybody that might call one. In your case, that low cost remote solution was we can rent a unit from one platform, whether they call for here or they call for Johnson Storage down the street. And there is no having to go from one software to the other. We can take payments through it. We can make notes, all of the things that would normally take time. It's instantaneous from one place. So that was a really big way that we could say, again, solving the first issue of low cost, how do we rent units, do collections, do auctions? Well, the other piece of it are the collections. That takes a ton of time for any facility that operates. If you have a full-time manager, there's a good chance a lot of their time is spent calling and going through, calling people over and over about their units, trying to get them to pay. The person will call back in, make payments over the phone. It's a very long process. And so when we also figured out we could automate that process where the 80% of the calls, emails, and texts go through your platform, and then the other 20%, depending on how late they are called by real people, the district managers, that once we get into the auction status, we're giving even more calls on top of the automated ones. Well, that was huge for us. Couple that with most calls we get from current customers are payments. Well, if we have a solution where people can pay through text, through the email that they receive, how much time that would save us. And I think I just saw, at least for this last month, I think we took in like $300,000 in payments through your texting system alone, which is just ridiculous.
That is so cool.
How much time it takes. So again, going back to what are the problems we had to solve, how we would grow. And so from a low cost standpoint, that was vital. That was absolutely vital. And so we had to figure out too, how in the world do we overlock? What do we do for overlocks and how do we use that process? Because there's a lot of products out there you could use. You could use the smart entry system for Janus and Oki, which is a fantastic system. I've used it a bunch of times. It works really well. The problem is there's a lot of facilities, those same facilities that we've been talking about in these tertiary markets or 30,000, 40,000 square foot facilities where it's very difficult to spend that amount of money per door, a few $100 a door to be able to get this to work. So we had to figure out a solution around that. The facilities that we've bought for our own portfolio, it really wouldn't work for any of those. Again, it's a great product, but it just does not fit most of the facilities, right, that we're talking about here. And so we tried everything. We tried Bluetooth locks. We tried like putting key boxes on the outsides of facilities, and each person would have an individualized key that they could take this overlock. What we ended up figuring out, which is going to be a common theme throughout our process, is the most common sense solution was using either DaVinci, because it's very simple and it's pretty cheap, or you can do DaVinci yourself as well as another option, even though it's not integrated with your software. And you buy combo locks online off Amazon. You put asset tags on them, and every facility, your call center has a database, and they know which lock numbers on which unit. The customer gets a code as soon as they pay, and they can take it off, put it in a Dropbox. That's the most common sense thing in the world, but we tried all the expensive stuff getting to that. And what we realized is not only is it low cost, but it's way easier for the tenant and for us, because how simple is it just to call and get a code, Monday through Sunday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. I mean, it's as easy as it gets. They drop it in a lock. So that was one of the other problems we have to solve. And I get that question constantly from operators that want to do more unmanned. What do you do about overlocks? Well, that's as simple as it gets. The other question that was a low-cost solution that we had to go in this theme, how do you give customers locks, right? Because in most cases, they'll buy the lock from the facility. Some facilities include it. But how do you deal with that? So you could try the vending machines, or the kiosks that also vend. We've tried both. They cost a lot of money, which obviously does not go well for the low-cost solution we're trying to figure out. But it also became overtly complicated. And so the same common sense led us to, why don't we just put a lock in every unit? I mean, that sounds so common sense, because it is. And you're only, the lock costs a couple dollars a piece. So if somebody takes a lock, which no one actually does, every time someone rents a unit, they have a welcome box, there's a lock in it, and they just go right up to the unit and can use it. I mean, it's, again, as simple as it gets in low cost. So when we were able to solve those problems, the last problem for a low cost solution, how do we clean units? How do we get trash picked up? Those kinds of things. And so, again, trying different services, like there are third-party services you can set up contracts, on an app or online for local handymen, those kinds of things to come out and deal with those issues. But it really just came down to, we're going to pay somebody $150 a week in the market that's just a 1099 employee. They go by 1 day a week minimum. Sometimes it's the lawn care person. Sometimes it's a nephew, the owner, whatever ends up working out. They put on overlocks, they clean units, they put locks in units, and they make sure everything's ready to rent. Do a walkthrough every week. Well, those are the three biggest issues we get all the time of how do you operate. And you want it to be more complicated. I talk to owners all the time where they think about it, they're like, that's just too easy. And the truth is it is, which is why it works super well. And so when it goes hand in hand with automated collection calls, it goes hand in hand with being able just to do these rentals over the phone. It is very easy and it's not complicated. And so once we had addressed those main points, we said, okay, it's at a low cost. It's really easy to implement in a facility. So now we can start gaining some traction. And that's exactly what happened. We've got story after story of these facilities where they've been trying to figure out how to run this, and they've been trying to figure out how to deal with these issues for a long time. And different people have come to the same conclusion. Red Dot's kind of similar. They just happen to use a kiosk. We don't use a kiosk. Same thing with 10 Federal. So there are other entities who've come to the same conclusion because it is the most common sense, low cost way to do it. So once we solved that problem, people started to pay attention. People started to really look at this idea and say, well, maybe this does make sense and it's not complicated. It's very easy. So maybe we could push forward to it. So then we started getting traction, right, with how these facilities work. So then the next piece was we had to come up with pricing that made sense. And that goes hand in hand again with the low cost. But now that we found a good way to run it that's efficient, what do we do for cost? How do we charge people to do this? And I was obsessed with coming up with this model that I could run a facility cheaper than someone could pay a full-time manager to be there. That's a caveat, because not only is a management company better than your management, period, but in most cases, there comes a significant cost. Like you're going to have a manager, you're going to have to pay 6%. You pay all these other fees, all the way up, which is great. That model works. And I cannot say enough about probably 50 of the management companies out there we work with. But in our mind, again, to fit the model where people could start buying and making money off of these tertiary facilities, I had to come up with a way that we could charge them less than what they would try and spend running it themselves, not even compared to another management company. We're obviously a lot less than that. So hand in hand, the solutions we found at first and coming up with a pricing model that would go again with the first point, we knew then we really had something, that we had something that would catch on. And I would say one of the most important pieces as to why we're able to grow as fast as we have, and it's obviously we're very fortunate, we're very, very grateful for the industry, and it really helps the reputation we've had. That helps out a ton in this. But we had to have proof of the concept. That's a really important piece that we get asked all the time, like, how is this actually working? And so in those proofs, we have a few different case studies and numbers that are absolutely fascinating. But one of our first facilities that are, I guess, maybe halfway through, about a year ago, maybe 13 months, we bought a facility in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. Okay. I mean, the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. That's not an exaggeration. I hate going there because it's so in the middle of nowhere. We bought this facility that we had seen years before. And we actually did an audit there, to help with the operations of the facility. And we told them that, hey, if you make these changes, this facility would be worth a lot more. They didn't end up making changes. It ended up coming down the road that we were able to buy the facilities. Somebody said, hey, it's for sale. So we ended up getting it. We got it for $1.4 million, which, a good return for a facility. That's a nice sweet spot. If you're trying to buy a tertiary, you want to make a little bit of money. In most cases, if you run it extremely well, there's no room to expand units, but you can do tenant insurance. You can do better collections. You can raise rates. But that's really it, besides cutting out the manager, right? And so normally you might make $500,000 on a 1.4 investment. There's a lot of people in here that buy all the time, and they understand, how equity works and what kind of returns we're trying to get in storage. We just got appraisals done at all of our sites. That site's worth 4.2 right now in a year.
Wow.
It went from 1.4 to 4.2 in a year. And so we've got a lot of really cool case studies. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in this business forever. And it is actually unbelievable. We've never seen returns like this on these facilities. And that's been our entire portfolio. We've got some cool numbers, hopefully, that will be coming out here, by the fall, that are just going to be unbelievable, that go hand in hand with that. And we have story after story of all these facilities across our whole portfolio experiencing the same thing. That started waking people up because, if you're spending traditionally $6 million for a brand new built facility, multi-story climate, in a good market, you're trying to make like 2 or 3 is a decent return over 5 years, really 8. If you count 3 years for construction, 5 years permanent loan, that's 8 years. You're going to make good money on it, but you might make $3 million on a $6 million investment. If you can make $3 million now on a $1.4 million investment, and you can do 5 of those deals for the same, you're going to build a brand new deal. Why in the world wouldn't people start paying attention? And so that's really when this started rolling, where we had all these companies that buy on scale. I mean, we've got clients that buy 100 facilities a year. We've got, clients that buy a facility a month, doesn't matter what size. Well, when they started seeing the numbers in the case studies, they started saying this might be worth giving it a shot. Because the last hiccup people got into that we had to prove as well is, can you lease up? Like, it's one thing to buy an existing facility that is already 90% full, right? And to do well with that kind of facility. What do you do for a brand new facility or a facility that was already underperforming, maybe 30% occupancy? How do you get it full? And so that was a big goal for us as well. So we believed in that so much. We built 3 facilities that were all brand new. 2 of them are over 50, 60,000 square feet. One of the newest ones we just opened May 1st in Panama City, a Copper Safe Storage, which is our storage brand there. And within the first month, we had rented 63 units in no office, no kiosk, nothing. We didn't even build an office there.
I'm very surprised you guys don't have a kiosk. That's interesting. And you still are just like doing incredible.
Well, here's the reason. I think when we looked at those stats, I think 70% of those people rented over the phone with an agent through Call Potential.
That's 70%. What I was going to ask, what the breakdown was. Do you also do online rentals too?
We do. Yep. So typically, depends on the market, about 30-35% of our rentals come from online. There's some markets it's about 40. It just depends on the demographics there. But about 65-70% of our rentals on average come from over the phone with an agent, because it doesn't. The problem is, right, that the kiosk cost, and this is not a knock on kiosks, but they're if you're going to spend $20,000 on a kiosk, but yet 30% of your rentals are just going to come over online before they get there anyways, and the other 65% are going to come over the phone. Why in the world spend that money for 5% of the rentals, where when they get there, you just have a QR code, which is what our facilities have, and tons of facilities have implemented this across the board. The REITs have implemented this as well. They, scan their phone really quick. It brings it up automatically to rent. They can rent in a minute. So it takes no time at all for them to be able to do it. And so why waste the resources on having these expensive solutions if your customers just aren't going to use them anyways? And part of that comes down to, it's quicker for an agent, using your system to rent over the phone than it is for that person to try and figure out how to use a kiosk, period. So if we're meeting these needs quicker, we know we're not losing rentals. For our first Panama City location that we built, which has been open, I think like a year and a half, maybe. I can't remember what date it opened. Same thing, no office, nothing there, no kiosk. We won an award a few months ago from selfstorage.com, which is one of the SpareFoot entities, for the highest lead generation and close rate out of 156 facilities.
What?
It makes no sense. I'm telling you, this is stuff that obviously we knew it would do well, but we didn't know it would do, this well.
I need that case study.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so that was, we didn't even know. I got an email saying we won this award. And I'm like, I didn't even know they do awards. Okay.
I didn't either. That's so cool.
It's crazy.
And you're gonna have to forward that to me. That sounds awesome.
Yes. And so that's a big deal, right? Is how to do this. And kind of in line with that, using your platform, one of the reasons we've been successful just on a per facility basis is our sales close rate as a whole, which is amazing that we can track it through call potential. Again, not even as it goes, but it was so helpful to be able to do this, because on call potential, you track a lot of stats for us per agents, like how they're performing, close rates, all this stuff. And so we track every month how successful our lead close rate has been for our agents to rent units. And I think the last time we checked, we were just over 49.5% or something.
That's awesome.
What's the average? Like, I think it's 23,
like 20, 26%, I think that's what the SSA says the industry average is.
Yep. And
so that would be like so much.
And we're double without a manager there. I mean, there's nothing on site to talk them into doing it. And that's for a lot of reasons. That's where the Bob Cocker thing paid off. Okay. If we weren't good at renting units, if we made a company that wasn't good at renting, we would have a serious problem. I think.
Yeah, you got an image problem.
Yeah, we'd all be fired. We'd have to sell it or something. So that's obviously a big piece. But what really helps us is the efficiency to do these things quickly. It's very easy to close a sale when we know the rental through your program is going to take a couple minutes, right, from front to back to get them in. And so being able to pay agents more money than most other call centers, right, pay just for a standard call center person because they're remote managers, has really helped in having those high quality people with control. So the growth is really a culmination.
And they get really good at it because they're doing it all day long.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's we've said this as part of the speech I can recite and dream about sometimes from Dad. If you have why not use a call center or a call center service? Because your manager might, in the busiest season, rent a unit a day, and that's in a good market. Okay, that's in a good market. But yet you have agents that rent 50 units a day, every day. So they're obviously going to be better at it. That's just whether you use any call center out there, they're going to be better than your manager is going to be, period.
Absolutely.
That was really big for us, is that from finding low cost solutions, the fact that the money alone, and I could talk all day long on the NOI differences in the amount of money that you save and therefore the equity increase to your facility. We've got so much data on that. And we've got a lot of clients that would say the exact same thing that we've been managing for. Culmination of that, the low cost solutions, the success that we've had as far as getting lease up done, raising rates, just a general portfolio gain. It really spoke for itself, where we didn't even have to really do much marketing, to be honest with you, because of COVID, and we weren't going to shows. Our first real show was the Florida show, where we went down there with our new stuff. And we're just now doing things like this with you guys on these platforms. Originally, we thought that if we were at about 80 by the end of the year, we'd be extremely happy. With the rate we're at now, I think we have like 15 about to come on, somewhere in that, from different clients. Just right now, we'll be at least 100 by the end of the year pretty easily, is what it looks like.
Wow, that is so cool. It also sounds like you're pretty busy.
Yeah, we are very busy, and somehow we're doing all the other consulting stuff, as well.
So we do have a few questions. Keep the questions coming, guys, but let's take a quick break and get these so I don't lose them. So we have, what states do you manage facilities in?
Of course. Okay, so I'm not gonna be able to name them all because we have them very spread out. The easiest way to see the states that we're in, because we're all over the Southeast. We're in Washington. We're in New York. We're in a lot of different places now. I think California, maybe we have some facilities in there, but we have them all spread out. We tried to take on a facility in Alaska. It was 110,000 square feet, and the buyer in Anchorage just ended up deciding not to at the last minute. So we were going to run one in Alaska as well, but our website, copperstoragesolutions.com, has an interactive map that shows every state that we're in as well.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Melissa asked, you mentioned overlocks. Who on your team is actually putting the overlocks on at the facility to tenants that are past due?
Great question. So for every facility, we have a 1099 employee. That they're responsible for going by 1 day a week. We hire them, we train them. They're paid out by the facility for 1099. And a lot of times it's the landscaper or it's the maintenance man that works there. That if you have somebody that comes by, fix a door, you might as well pay them $100 a week, $150 a week. And they're responsible for doing a walkthrough. They're responsible for cleaning units, putting locks in units, and overlocking, as well as picking up trash. They don't change anything in the system. We don't rely on them to do that. They communicate directly with the district manager. The district manager makes all the changes, tells them if they need to, look at something, if they need to cut a lock, whatever. The district manager is in charge of all that. And then the DMs for each group of facilities, they travel around and do audits constantly of those facilities to make sure that the on-site person is doing well. Do they need to hire a new on-site person, that kind of thing. So it's just a cheap 1099 employee.
Awesome. How are you using QR codes to rent units?
Yes. Okay. So there are some cool services online. If you Google just QR code creator, and you can get them in different colors with your logo and all sorts of stuff. And they're all pretty cheap and easy to use. You pay like a monthly fee for it. It's really cheap. So the QR code that you create, you put a link in the creator of wherever you want that QR code to go. And so you can just have these signs made with the QR code logo. It gives you a logo file for it. And so we link it for each facility directly to the rates and rental page on the website. And so when you go on, and again, it's just a link, you go to your website, you take wherever your rent, your rent now buttons or payments, those kinds of things. You just take that link from the top URL, you put it in the creator, and from that point on, that QR code will take them straight there to be able to rent. It's pretty easy.
Perfect. Jeremiah wanted to ask what your preferred solution for e-sign is.
Of course. So all of our stores and the stores that we manage are SiteLink or StoreEdge. And there's a few reasons for that. We've used them for a long time. I love a lot of other software companies out there, but we had to have something that was a little bit more streamlined, so we don't have this jumbled mess of different facilities using different things for us. So whether it's StoreEdge or SiteLink, two different things happen. If they rent using call potential, basically we can send a text while over the phone directly to the customer that has a link where over the phone with the agent, they'll walk them through e-signing it on their phone. Or if they rent online, or if they don't have a smartphone, which isn't really that rare anymore, we can email it to them, and on their desktop, or if they rent online on the desktop, it will pull up an e-sign link that is done through the SiteLink portal or the StoreEdge rental center, depending on which one you use. And there's a lot of other management softwares that also do that, where they'll have a portal that they can turn on e-sign. I think StoreEdge and SiteLink are the easiest to use, in my opinion, but it's pretty easy to set up. If you ask your support person for your software, they can do it really easy and quick to make sure it works.
Dean wants to know how you're handling the kind of growth you're getting and if you're able to hire.
Yeah, so great question as well. We have, I don't care what industry you're in right now, hiring is miserable, which is another reason why I'm glad we're doing automated, because I can't stand the revolving door managers. And so we had to, one, make sure we were paying enough so that we could get employees. It's it seems to be a lot easier now. So we're staying ahead. If we know we've got facilities coming up, we always overstaff to make sure that we can, we can account for it. But there was a stretch when unemployment was paying a little bit higher, where we would, go through 100. Our staffing director would go through 100 resumes and contact people for interviews, and you schedule like 8 people to show up for training and 4 show up. It's getting a little bit better now, but you have to make sure you pay enough that in our case, they all work remotely, which was a big plus of how we're able to get employees. They're trained in person in Birmingham, or there's a place in Florida, depending on where they're hired. So they, the staffing director goes and trains them, works with them in person, but from that point on, they work from home. And that it's made it a lot easier to find good employees, because that's a perk that they really care about.
Agree. So Jim wanted to know how you manage and oversee the maintenance people.
Yeah, so a few things. One is obviously we hire them. So that's really important. And every DM is in charge of getting reports every week from the on-site people, making sure they're going out there. They get pictures in return to make sure things are done correctly. They're constantly audited on what needs, if they need to improve or if they're not doing something. And so it's a pretty nice system where, because of how much we back check it and we get proof that things are done, we get constant feedback from customers to make sure the place is clean, that there's no trash. And that constant checking and feedback allows it pretty easily, where you know how good of a job that they're doing. But you just make sure you set it up for accountability purposes, that you're getting those pictures, that you're getting feedback from your customers to make sure that your on-site person's doing what they should be.
You have a few more minutes, because we're getting a ton of questions.
yeah, I've got all the time in the world. Yeah.
Normally we have some couple stage ones at the end, but this is a clearly very popular topic. Mike, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Kehoe would like to know how he could contact you to talk about this more.
Yeah, of course. So a couple of things. One is our contact info is on copperstorage-solutions.com. Let me make this a lot easier for everybody. If you would like to contact, my number is just 205-643-0712. Again, that number is on the website as well, along with my email at brett@selfstorage101.com. So either way, whatever's easiest for you, you can contact that way. Again, the website is copperstorage-solutions.com.
And also with the follow-up after this webinar, we'll have that link there too, and you can give me your phone number to Brett. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. She says it's a great session. Thank you, Brett. She looks forward to meeting you, and she knows the rest of the coppers. Let's see what else we got here.
I'm the coolest.
Are you using?
By the way.
What was that?
I'm the coolest copper, Jessica.
Yeah. So. We need a ribbon that says coolest copper at the shows. Can one of you guys get on that for us?
Yes.
Ian wants to know, are you using a call center as a backup to your virtual district managers?
Yes. So we built our own call center. And so we have 2 things. We have DMs that are the on-site operations. They travel around, they do auctions, they deal with serious customer issues. They contact them personally if it's something that's not just a normal, easy issue for the call center. But our call center is the primary force. They're calling them a call center really isn't fair. They act as a call center, but they do outbound calls. They deal with customer service issues. Then we have the higher level of DMs that don't work at the call center, but they are dealing with all the other issues that the call center can't deal with. There are some people that do what we do, and you can also use another call center as backup if you find that it's difficult for you to grow, that you're getting these overflow calls. XPS and some other companies, they'll handle overflow calls for your own call center. So if they can't get to it, it'll actually go to one of those other companies. We don't do that, but you do have the option of doing it.
Dean wants to know if your website will replace their existing website, and do you have any district managers in place in the Northwest?
Yeah, so great question. Yes, actually. So we have one of the DMs that has been on the team the longest. He just got put into another subset of facilities. And so, yes, he would actually be handling all of those. And he's the best one we have personally. He's worked for us for a long time in operations. But so for the website, we have recommendations and special deals with marketing companies. Like, so in Automated's case, right? We use Automate for all of ours. Most of our clients do. The other clients use Storable for their websites. Both are great options. There are other good companies, G5 and these other places, but in our case, most use automated, and we have a discount, for a very large discount for all of our clients, that if you do want to use them, you can replace your website. I think they're better for lease up and some other things. Storable is another good option. So people will come on as our brand if you want to be a copper safe storage, which there's no other tie to do that. You don't have to or not do it. There's no special contract for it or anything. You can use our established website that ranks super well, of just coppersafestorage.com. And so some of those stores being added are other people's stores they own, but you could take advantage. It's way cheaper if you want to go that route. You also don't have to. We would help get you a new website made, or if your website's already great and it's integrated with the software, then we could just keep the website. Something we can talk through and give you multiple options for.
Speaking of marketing, Jim Ferguson is on. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
And he wants to know, are you marketing locally as it is an unmanned location for your facilities within the community, or working with partner companies, etc.?
Okay, so like I said, I have a lot of time, so don't feel bad at all about asking those questions. I'm totally free.
So you got a bunch.
I am free. That's a great question. We get this a lot. And I've spent a lot of time going back and forth and making these arguments with okay, what's more valuable, the on the ground marketing or not? And I'm actually working on something called potential later that'll come later about my personal opinion. And I'm 27, right? So I get that this is very different than where it is. We've spent a lot of money through the years, over the last few decades, on the ground marketing, and the returns that we're getting now are so bad. Comparatively to putting everything on the online storefront side. Your website is really now it's the new storefront. That's your new front office that people go to, because you have people just will go with the website before they ever just come in and just try and figure it out from there. So I personally, at our facilities, we do not do on the ground. All the success we've had, those 63 rentals in the first month, these facilities that we're at 90% occupancy within a year and a half from the time we built them, it's ridiculous. We have not done on the ground marketing. We do have other management clients though that like doing it, so we help them with that. We can help them get materials and do it correctly, and they live locally and they just want to. But in my opinion, in most cases, you just have too much diminished returns where it doesn't do very well. You could do a mailing service. It's not that expensive. But as a whole, it really does not work well for facilities in today.
So being in a tertiary market, is there less competition? Maybe you don't have to invest as much in all those ancillary marketing?
Also a fantastic point. For tertiary markets, exactly like you said, you're competing with Jim Bob Storage. You're not really competing much. And don't get me wrong, we've got a ton of stores that are competing with Cube, Life Storage, Public, all those guys. But for specifically the tertiary markets, you usually don't even have to do pay-per-click marketing. Whatever marketing firm you're using, most of the time they're going to say you don't need it because none of your other clients are doing it. Half of them don't have websites. Half of them don't answer the phone when you call. So you don't really need to spend that money there. You're 100% right on that side.
Yeah. Margaret would like to know if you can explain the process from the rental to getting into the unit. Are they given a gate code online? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So a few things. So yes, if they rent online, not over the phone, then they're going to go ahead and pick the unit size they want. So they fill out a few things. If they have proof of insurance, they can provide it. If not, they're going to take the tenant insurance. And it's a really quick process. Could take 2 minutes, could take 5 minutes, depending on the person, how quick they are at typing. And the second they rent and they sign their lease, they put in their own gate code, and that gate code will work. So from that point, so they rent the unit, they go straight to their unit. If they need help finding it, which most facilities are pretty easy, then they can call. We're open 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Monday through Sunday, Central. But they'll go straight to their unit. And once they get to the unit, there's a welcome box I created that, yeah, hold on. Forgot that I had this. Okay, this is kind of cool. We have a welcome box we created for our facility. It looks really cool, and we've got management clients that use it with their logo and stuff. And inside of that welcome box, there's a lock waiting for them already out of the package. It already has a set of keys in it with a keychain on it, and it has like a little like 3x5 like little note card type thing that has how to pay and our hours and some stuff like that. So it's a nice little welcome box. You don't have to do that. We've got other management clients that just have a lock waiting in there for them. But as soon as they get to the unit, they'll have a brand new lock waiting on them, and they just start renting from that point. It's a really easy process.
How do you keep the homeless out? Because they will sleep in the units overnight and stay at the site all day long and wash up in the restrooms.
Fantastic question. One is we don't have bathrooms. So in most cases, if you do not have an office or you close the office down, most states, you don't have to have a bathroom at that point because you don't have an office on site. And now, some places they make you. So your best bet is to put combination locks on the bathroom. And then if someone needs to use it, they can get the combination to go in. That's one, and you can make sure that they're renting. But for the homeless issue, which is a big issue, each market's a little bit different. If you're in a market where that is an issue, we found 2 solutions that work, okay? The first one is a little bit more simple and it's preferable. You can put closed auction tags on every single unit. And then, when people rent, they just twist it off, go in there. We found that that's a good deterrent. If it's not, and they don't care and they're going to break it off, we put our combination locks on every rentable unit as well. So any vacant unit has a combo lock. So whenever they rent, they'll be given a combination to get into that unit and get their lock. And that's a last resort. We have some facilities that are in a market where that's just the case. And so every single unit has a combination lock so that they cannot use it.
Creative.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have properties in Texas?
We do not currently. I don't think I could. I think Chase is one of our director of our call centers in here. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong on that, to be honest with you. But because we're bringing on so many. But I did actually just get a call last week about 5 or 6 there that somebody was interested in putting in. So we would love to be in Texas. Like I said, if we're the only one to be really difficult, obviously Alaska's a little difficult, but we were going to. Hawaii would be.
You just wanted a trip to Alaska.
Yeah, that's really. I was like, we can go fishing if they do something. So we're in a bunch of states in that area. We might have one in. Yes, okay, we do actually. I'm so glad Chase is in here. Yeah, we have facility in Garland and Killeen, Texas. So yes, we are in Texas. Thanks, Chase.
Jim wanted to know if you're using. I think I'm getting this question right here. If you're using call potential for both your SiteLink and storage clients, if you're the services you use, are you using it like at parity, or is there any that you're only using with SiteLink or you're only using with storage?
So great question. So we going forward, we try and push people to StoreEdge. We even thought about switching. So when we first signed up for SiteLink, we were using spider door keypads because they're phenomenal. That's a whole other talk at some other point, but they were only integrated with SiteLink out of the 2. And so they have actually just made that change to where they are now integrated with StoreEdge. And so we've been pushing people to StoreEdge because in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to use. It's quicker on management services to run a bunch of stores. There's a lot of processes that work easier and they're less time consuming. So if it were me, and I think we're going to switch our own personal stores finally over to StoreEdge, I would use StoreEdge and recommend that to people out of the 2.
Who follows up on the lease paperwork that the customer completes, like a file audit?
Yeah, so all of our e-sign, everything is stored on a cloud. And so at any point, whether they move out, whether it's 5 years from now, we keep those files all stored. Same thing, if they need to, if we send out letters, if we have communication, texts, emails, that's another good thing about StoreEdge. All of that's stored within StoreEdge, specifically on tenant accounts. And if 10 years from now, if you need to bring it up, you can. So it is all stored digitally. When you take over a new facility, it's very important. If it's an existing facility, especially older ones that have physical files, one of the first things you want to do is send out your new lease and mail it to everybody. And that way, from that point on, it shows a digital record that you mailed them all the lease. And so you're good starting on that next first. So that is an important thing to do.
How are you so I overheard a conversation while we were in Nashville about how some of the facilities you were bringing on, there were just tons of auctions and then there weren't. Can you explain your process a little about how you have reduced the number of auctions you have at those facilities?
Of course. So I love buying facilities that have a bunch of that have bad past dues, because it's very easy to fix. And when you buy a facility, right, you're only buying on cash flow, and the all 50 units that are 30 days past due are not cash flow. But if you can fix it, that's an easy way to gain that cash flow. We don't buy on potential; we buy on actual. So we have a facility in Valley, Alabama that we bought. In the first thing we did is our DM went down there and we cut, I think, 56 locks at once. And within 2 weeks, 49 of those 56 paid, and they hadn't paid for months. Oh. So there's a couple things. One is being serious enough and going through with your auction process, which most of these owners just didn't. They did not go through the process. You're unbelievably surprised that if you overlock, you kick them out of the gate, after 5-6 days, depending on the state law. If you don't let them in, you overlock on time, and you're serious about it. No partial payments. That's something you never want to get into. It makes it extremely difficult for anyone to ever catch up. Plus, there's some legal ramifications. Those are huge in getting rid of auctions and cutting down. The other is constant contact, right? So the fact that we, through call potential, are sending out texts, emails, automated calls on an IVR every week, and we're kind of flooding with that, really helps. And obviously, stick to your late fees. Don't ever waive late fees. Don't ever waive late fees. If there's some weird scenario where they send in a check and it's a national holiday on Monday, you get it Tuesday, that's up to you. But otherwise, you're just going to have a perpetual issue of people not paying.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last 2 questions, guys. The maintenance person puts the lock welcome box in the unit. How often is the maintenance person on the property?
Yeah, so typically when we hire them, we understand that they're going to be there at least 1 full day a week, okay? But sometimes, especially in the beginning of the facility, there are other things we need to get done. We need stuff checked on. So we'll have a maintenance person maybe go by for a couple hours, 3 or 4 days that week. It just depends on the project. I'd seen another question that goes with it, with how many times the DM visit. Basically with that, it depends again on the site, how new it is, how many issues there are. We try and get an audit done every month and after 2 months, especially in the beginning. But there are plenty of cases where they go out there once a month because of specific issues of getting stuff fixed. But yeah, on-site guys at least 1 day a week. But an understanding that they have to be there more if we need them.
Perfect. All right. Well, Brett, thank you so much. I learned so much. You for being 27, you are a wealth of knowledge. We're going to send a follow-up email after this. I'll have the website, how to contact Brett if you need to get in touch with Call Potential. And I'm sure he'll welcome questions if you guys want to reach out to him directly too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, perfect. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us do this.
Anytime. You're welcome anytime. Thank you.
Thanks,